All right, tonight is the night the president delivers a high-stakes speech, his first State of the Union address before a divided Congress. Joining us now is Republican Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana, of course, a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Poppy.
So the president will address the nation, Congress, tonight in the State of the Union address before a divided Congress, also after a bitter battle over even delivering the State of the Union address. What would your advice be to him tonight to most effectively unite the country?
Well, what I'd advise the president to do is just speak from the heart. I mean, we have a press release from the White House. We know the general topics, but we don't know the emphasis on which he's going to put on each topic. If he has something new to say on border security and immigration, I hope he talks about that. We've got to get that issue behind us. You know how I feel about it.
Yep.
There are two issues on which I think we can all work. One is infrastructure. I'd like to see him talk about that. The problem with infrastructure is we don't have a way to pay for it. I mean, we just don't. Everything we do now is with borrowed money. I'd like to see him spend a lot of time on the cost of health insurance. I think there is common ground there. I think the Republicans and the Democrats have more in common on that issue than they don't. If we don't do something about the cost of health insurance in this country, the voters are going to go medieval on us, and they should.
So
go ahead.
Yeah, I hear your point on infrastructure, on healthcare, two critically important issues to every American. On the issue of immigration and border security, it's very clear how you feel about the president if he does declare a national emergency. You've said it's not your preference. But what I think is interesting, Senator, is there has been a growing chorus of Republican senators in the last 24 hours seeming to beg the president in public not to declare a national emergency to get wall funding. Senate Majority Whip John Thune of South Dakota, quote, "I hope they don't go down that path." Senator John Cornyn, a dangerous step, quote, "a serious constitutional question." Senate Homeland Security Chairman Ron Johnson said it would erode constitutionality. And Republican Senator Susan Collins of Maine calls it of dubious constitutionality. You are an attorney. A, do you believe it is of dubious constitutionality? And B, do you share their concerns?
Couple of points, Poppy. Number one, it's not my preferred choice. Number two, White House counsel's office has some pretty smart lawyers. My guess is they've researched it. I think the president probably does have the authority. It'll be litigated. Number three, I know a lot of my I don't look. It's not my preferred choice, but I don't think the world's going to spin off its axis if the president does it. Now, some of my colleagues in the Senate on both sides of the aisle, particularly Republicans, are all a titter about the fact that he might do it. But I've learned in this place talk's cheap. Let's see how they vote. If the president does it, I'm willing to bet you that a lot of the Republicans that are saying it's a bad idea and he shouldn't do it, they'll vote to support him. Now, I could be wrong. I'm going to vote to support him.
So what will you do if the president does declare a national emergency?
Oh, I'll vote to support him.
Are you worried? Let's say that happens. Let's play that scenario out. You support it. So then what happens? And we've heard this brought up by Senator Marco Rubio, for example. If a Democratic president were then to say, climate change is a national emergency, I'm demanding X amount to fight climate change, or there is a mass shooting at a school, God forbid, I am demanding X amount of funds for gun control. Does that not just open the floodgates?
Well, that could happen right now. Whether the president exercises his powers, which Congress gave him, by the way.
Would you support that?
It depends on the issue. It depends on whether I thought it was a national emergency. I happen to agree with the president. I think we do have an emergency on the border. I think 500,000 people, at least, we don't really know how many, coming into our country without us knowing who they are.
And just to be clear, you say it's a crisis. Let's just pull up the chart of the numbers, the indisputable facts here. Did you think it was a crisis also in 2016 when Republicans controlled both chambers of Congress and you had more undocumented workers crossing the border?
Well,
was it a crisis then that you would have supported the president calling a national emergency for to fund?
Yes and yes. And as you know, Poppy, we didn't have control of the Senate. It takes 60 votes in the Senate to do anything. You have to have, even if you have a majority, as we did then and we do now, you have to have Democratic support. So it's not really fair to say well, the Republicans had the control of the Senate. No, we didn't control 60 votes.
You had the majority in the Senate. I want to move on to move on to the Attorney General nominee that you support, William Barr. You'll vote for him on Thursday. Listen to your fellow Senator, Democrat Richard Blumenthal, express his concern after meeting this week with Barr.
He chose not to make the commitment that he would release that report completely and directly to Congress and the American people. He declined to say that he would not oppose a subpoena from a congressional committee for that report. He declined to say that he would permit Robert Mueller to testify without blocking it.
Does any of that give you pause, Senator?
Well, yes and no, Poppy. I'm not trying to dodge your question. Look, Richard's an incredibly accomplished lawyer and a great guy. I don't think it's any surprise that he's opposing Barr for Attorney General because Richard opposes all of President Trump's choices. That's his right. I'm not criticizing him. My impression of Barr is this. He's at the point in his career where if you get angry at him or you don't like what he's doing, his attitude is call somebody who cares. I think he's really smart. He's kind of a law nerd. He's thought about the law. He loves justice. He loves the FBI. He's going to do what he thinks right. He's right. He's going to follow the law. Now, right now, the rules at FBI and Justice say the report isn't released. I think that Barr will probably find a way to release it. And here's why. Number one, the American people have a right to know. That's my opinion. And number two, it's going to leak anyway. I mean, all this discussion about should we make it public or not, it's going to leak. The only question is whether it leaks in toto or it leaks in dribs and drabs. And I think the American people would be better off to have it just come out there. Here it is, unvarnished. Draw your own conclusions. The problem with all this is that there are too many people, not you and John, but there are too many people in Washington, D.C. that think they're smarter and more virtuous than the American people. And they're not.
Well,
the American people can figure this out if you show them the facts.
Good thing we're sitting in New York this morning, though we will be in Washington, D.C. tomorrow morning. Before I go very quickly on that, you heard the end of Senator Blumenthal's statement, which is that he's concerned that Barr would not say to him if Robert Mueller should testify before Congress without blocking it. Do you want Bob Mueller to testify before Congress once he's done with the report?
It depends on whether I think we need to have him. I mean, I wouldn't mind hearing what he has to say. We've heard everything secondhand and thirdhand now for a couple of years. I sure wouldn't mind sitting down with Bob Mueller and saying, hey, what about this and why didn't you go there? Now, he's a good prosecutor, and he's a very, very principled guy, is my understanding. I don't know him. I don't know that he's going to answer a lot of the questions.
Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana, we appreciate you being with us on an important morning. Thank you.
Thanks, Poppy.
All right.